There is a third person in your relationship. It is not a lover, it is your own shadow, and it is secretly sabotaging everything. This unseen force is the architect of your most confusing fights, the reason you keep dating the same person in a different body, and the silent barrier to the authentic connection you crave. This entity is not external, it is the collection of every part of yourself that you have disowned, repressed, and refused to acknowledge. It is your hidden anger, your secret envy, your buried creativity, and your dormant courage. The psychologist Carl Jung called this the shadow, and understanding its role is the key to transforming your relationships from a battleground into a space of profound growth. We are taught to believe that a relationship is a dynamic between two people. In reality, it is often a complex interaction between four entities: you, your partner, your shadow, and their shadow. Today, we will focus on your side of the equation. We will decode how your shadow operates, how it projects itself onto the person you love, and how you can begin the work of integration to build a connection based not on illusion, but on wholeness. The shadow is born in the darkness of our unconscious mind, a psychological repository for all the aspects of our personality that our conscious ego deems unacceptable. From a young age, we learn which behaviors and feelings earn us approval and which lead to punishment or shame. Be nice, do not be angry. Be generous, do not be selfish. Be strong, do not be weak. To maintain our place in our family and society, we consciously identify with the acceptable traits and push the unacceptable ones away. We pack them into a metaphorical suitcase and store it in the basement of our psyche.
But these repressed parts do not disappear. They live on, accumulating energy in the dark, forming the shadow. The primary way the shadow exerts its influence in our adult lives, especially in our intimate relationships, is through a powerful mechanism called projection. Imagine your mind is a movie projector. The film running inside is your inner world, your beliefs, your fears, your repressed desires, your unacknowledged traits. Your partner, in this metaphor, becomes the blank screen. Projection occurs when you play your inner movie onto them, mistaking the images on the screen for the screen itself. You are no longer seeing your partner. You are seeing a reflection of the parts of yourself you cannot or will not see. This is not a conscious choice. It is a powerful, unconscious defense mechanism designed to protect your self-concept. If you believe you are a kind and patient person, it is deeply uncomfortable to acknowledge your own capacity for rage and intolerance. It is far easier to project that rage onto your partner, to see them as the angry one, the difficult one. This allows you to preserve your identity while unconsciously engaging with the disowned part of yourself through them. These projections are rarely subtle. They are signaled by disproportionate emotional reactions, the minor annoyance that triggers a major conflict, the specific habit that feels irrationally irritating, the recurring argument that circles the same drain with no resolution. These are often signposts pointing directly to a shadow projection. Let us make this concrete with a scenario. Consider Sarah and Tom. Sarah is a meticulous planner. Her life is organized, efficient, and predictable. She prides herself on her responsibility. Her childhood was one where praise was given for achievement and order, and unpredictability was met with anxiety. Tom is a free-spirited musician. He is spontaneous, creative, and often lives in the moment, sometimes forgetting appointments or leaving projects unfinished. On the surface, they are a classic case of opposites attract.
But a recurring conflict poisons their connection. Sarah constantly criticizes Tom for being irresponsible and lazy. She gets intensely angry when he forgets to pay a bill or decides to work on a new song instead of doing chores. To her, his behavior is a personal failing, a sign of his lack of care for their shared life. This is not a simple disagreement about household management. It is a shadow projection in action. Sarah's conscious identity is built on being the responsible one. Her shadow, however, contains the parts of her she has repressed to maintain this identity: her own desire for rest, her longing for unstructured freedom, her fear of chaos if she were to let go of control even for a moment. She cannot consciously own these feelings, so she projects them onto Tom. She attacks his spontaneity because it represents the very chaos she fears within herself. He becomes the container for her disowned irresponsibility. In arguing with him, she is really arguing with a hidden part of herself, trying to control the external reflection of her own inner turmoil. Let us consider another couple, Mark and Chloe. Mark is a high-achieving lawyer, working 60-hour weeks and constantly pushing for the next promotion. He sees himself as driven and ambitious. Chloe is a graphic designer who works from home, values her work-life balance, and is content with her current level of success. Mark frequently criticizes Chloe for what he calls her lack of ambition. He pushes her to take on more clients, to network, to build an agency. He frames it as caring for her future, but his tone is often condescending and frustrated. He sees her contentment as laziness. This is Mark's shadow at play. To maintain his identity as a successful provider, he has repressed his own profound exhaustion. He has buried his fear of being seen as ordinary, his secret desire to slow down and simply enjoy life. He cannot admit these feelings to himself, so he projects them onto Chloe. He attacks her contentment because it mirrors the rest he denies himself. Her peace feels like a judgment on his relentless striving. In fighting with her about her ambition, he is fighting his own desperate need for a permission slip to stop running. These are examples of negative shadow projection, where we project the traits we deem unacceptable.
But the shadow is not only made of darkness and negativity, it also contains our unexpressed potential, our dormant strengths, and our hidden talents. Jung called this the golden shadow. These are the positive qualities we have disowned, often because of childhood conditioning. Perhaps you were told not to be too loud, so you repressed your assertiveness. Perhaps you were shamed for seeking attention, so you buried your creative flair. We then project this golden shadow onto others, leading to intense, almost irrational admiration or attraction. We are drawn to people who embody the very gold we have failed to claim in ourselves. Returning to Sarah and Tom, we can see this dynamic at play. While Sarah consciously criticizes Tom's free spirit, she is also unconsciously drawn to it. His ability to lose himself in his music, to live without a rigid schedule, represents the very creativity and spontaneity she has repressed. Her attraction to him is not just about his personality. It is a pull towards the missing pieces of her own soul. He embodies her golden shadow. She is in love with her own unrealized potential, projected onto him. This is why we often find ourselves attracted to a specific type. We are trying to connect with our own shadow through another person. We might seek out a partner who needs fixing, to engage with our own repressed need for care, or an unattainable partner to dance with our own disowned feelings of unworthiness. The relationship becomes an arena for our shadow to play out its dramas. The critical step in breaking this cycle is to turn the projector off and look at the film itself. This requires radical self-honesty. Here is a practical framework for you to begin this work. It is a process of turning your focus inward whenever you feel a strong emotional charge. The next time you feel a powerful, disproportionate emotional reaction to your partner, either positive or negative, pause. The first step is to simply notice the intensity. Acknowledge that the strength of your feeling is a signal. It is more than just the present situation. The second step is to name the specific trait in your partner that is activating you. Be precise.
Is it their messiness, their confidence, their emotional distance, their neediness? Get clear on the label you are applying to them in that moment. The third and most crucial step is to apply the mirror test. You must hold that trait up to yourself and ask a difficult question. Where does this trait live inside of me? This question has two parts. First, where might I be expressing this exact trait in a way I refuse to see? If you are angry at your partner's selfishness, where are you being selfish in your own life? Perhaps in a more subtle or socially acceptable way. Second, and often more profoundly, where do I desperately need to integrate a version of this trait into my own life? If you are enraged by your partner's selfishness, perhaps it is because you consistently neglect your own needs and are crying out for a dose of healthy selfishness to set better boundaries. If you are in awe of your partner's confidence, you must ask where your own confidence is buried and what you need to do to reclaim it. This is not about blaming yourself or absolving your partner of their behavior. Their actions are their own. This is about taking ownership of your reaction. Your reaction is your responsibility, and it is your greatest tool for self-discovery. Let us follow Sarah as she begins this process. During another argument about Tom's irresponsibility, she remembers the mirror test. Instead of escalating the fight, she takes a moment. She considers the statement, "His irresponsibility lives in me." At first, her mind rejects it.
But then she looks deeper. She recognizes the constant exhaustion she feels from her relentless planning. She admits to herself, just for a moment, a deep longing to simply let go, to be spontaneous, to create something just for the joy of it, without a goal or a deadline. This is the first step of shadow integration. It is the conscious acknowledgement and acceptance of a previously repressed part of herself.
She is not becoming irresponsible, she is becoming whole. She is integrating her shadow. As Sarah continues this work, her dynamic with Tom begins to shift. Her anger at his spontaneity softens, replaced by a growing curiosity. She stops needing him to be the irresponsible one so she can be the responsible one. This frees him from the confines of her projection. He is no longer just a screen for her inner movie, he is a person. She can now see him for who he is, with his own strengths and weaknesses. She might even start to consciously embrace her own need for rest and creativity. Maybe she picks up an old hobby or schedules an unscheduled weekend. By integrating her shadow, she is not only healing herself, she is allowing for a more authentic relationship to emerge. The process of integration is not about indulging the darkest parts of your shadow. It is about bringing them into the light of consciousness. You acknowledge your capacity for anger, not by becoming explosive, but by learning to recognize your anger as a signal and express it constructively. You acknowledge your repressed creativity, not by abandoning your responsibilities, but by carving out intentional space for it in your life. Integration is about finding a healthy, balanced expression for these hidden energies. When you do this, the energy you once spent on repression and projection becomes available for connection and growth. The goal of this work, in the Jungian sense, is individuation. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming the most complete, authentic version of yourself. It means integrating all parts of yourself, the light and the dark, the conscious and the unconscious, into a cohesive whole. A conscious relationship is one of the most powerful catalysts for this process. Your partner, when you stop projecting, becomes your greatest ally in this journey. Their presence will naturally illuminate the parts of you that remain in shadow, not through conflict, but through connection. The recurring fights will lessen, not because the issues disappear, but because you are no longer arguing with a ghost. You are communicating with a person. You will learn to say, I am feeling a strong reaction to what you just did, and I need to understand what it is activating in me. This transforms a battle into a shared exploration. Confronting your shadow is not easy. It requires courage to look at the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding. But the alternative is to remain stuck in a loop, projecting your inner world onto others and wondering why you always feel so misunderstood. The third person in your relationship does not have to be a saboteur. By turning to face it, by integrating its lessons and its gifts, you can transform it into a source of wisdom, depth, and profound connection. You stop needing your partner to complete you, and instead you stand beside them as two whole individuals, choosing to share a life together.